Do you ever find yourself inhaling a tub of ice cream after a super crazy stressful day at work? Or maybe the kids are driving you bonkers all day and so you need a cupcake after they go to bed, otherwise they'll eat yours. If that's the case, then you are likely a victim of emotional eating. What's up, mamas? Alexandria here, 35-year-old toddler mom, therapist, and gym rat. Losing 40 pounds postpartum changed my life, and so now my goal is to help you so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did along the way and hopefully reach your goals in a bit more seamless way. And the good news for you is I'm also a licensed therapist, and so that means I can teach you the strategies to improve your mindset in your weight loss journey. And today I want to talk about emotional eating and its impact on our weight loss. Why does it happen? And what can we do about it? So if you're ready, let's go. So the research suggests that around 33% of people regularly either overeat or eat unhealthy foods to cope with their stress. And to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised that that number is so low. It feels like it should be higher to me. But I don't know. That's what the research says. That suggests that there are a decent amount of people who experience this. So why does it happen? Why do we emotionally eat? Well, the reason we emotionally eat is not because we're lazy or that we don't care about ourselves or any of these other number of things. It's actually biological. So the shortened version, and anyone in the comments who's a dietitian or knows more about this than me can feel free to fill in the gaps if you want those. But the short of it is, when our body produces stress, we release cortisol. And when we release cortisol, we produce higher levels of ghrelin, which is the appetite or hunger hormone in our body, even if we're not actually biologically hungry. And when we release that hunger hormone and we eat something, we then produce the leptin, which is the appetite suppressant. So it becomes basically a reward-based system. We get stressed out, we eat something, the ghrelin, improves, and we release the leptin, and now we're full, and now we feel better, at least for a little bit. So it makes perfect sense why when we're stuck in this sort of reward-based system, it can be really hard to discern if we're emotional eating or if we're eating because we're actually hungry. So let's break it down. How do we know if we're emotionally eating or if we're eating out of actual hunger? And that may seem obvious to some, but I actually think it can be a little bit tricky to discern the difference. But we're going to talk about some tips and strategies that we can do. So the key difference between emotional hunger and eating for actual hunger is that emotional hunger comes on quickly. It's that sort of instant, I need this right now, that sort of craving that we experience when we just desperately need a grilled cheese sandwich or when we desperately need some ice cream. Those sort of things are a pretty good indicator that it may be an emotional eating trigger rather than a hunger trigger. Real hunger is a slow burn of sorts. It takes time to progress, and we sort of get gradually more and more hungry until we eat something, and then we feel full. So that's a decent indicator of which one you're experiencing. The other good way to sort of note it is that if you're like craving junk food, it's more likely to be emotional hunger than actual hunger. Okay, fine. So we know what it is. What can we do about it? So there are a couple of things that we can do. So the first step is that we're going to identify our trigger foods. What are the foods that you tend to go to when you're stressed? And make yourself a list. Put on the list all the things that you tend to go to when you're stressed. For me, mine is usually some sort of savory food, like a chip or some sort of crunchy food. But for some, it might be a cupcake, or it might be a bowl of ice cream. Whatever yours is, make a list of all of those trigger foods that you eat or tend to eat when you're feeling stressed. Step 2, identify the emotions that you experience that make you want to eat. So maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's boredom, depression, anger. It really could be any number of emotions that you experience, but be aware about the experience that you feel when you want to eat. For some, when they're anxious, they don't want to eat. But when you feel depressed, you are more likely to want to eat. So figure out what those feelings are that you experience. And listen, if you are finding this video helpful or useful in some kind of way, I would love if you would subscribe and let me be your non-judgy mom friend who comes alongside you to help you reach your health and wellness and weight loss goals, because I would love to do that. So what does this look like practically? So what you're going to do is you're feeling like you want to go to a snack. So you're going to the kitchen to grab a snack. First, you're going to stop and assess. And you're going to assess, when did I last eat a meal? Was it within the hour? Was it 5 minutes ago? Was it 30 minutes ago? When was my last meal? And you're going to make note of that. Then, after you make note of when your last meal was, you're going to ask yourself, what do I want? What am I craving? I call this the banana test. Now, this is not, I didn't coin the banana test term. I heard this from somewhere. I don't know where I heard this from, but I heard it from somewhere. But basically, the banana test is the idea that if I sat down right now to eat something and I don't want a banana, or a banana doesn't sound appetizing to me, then there's a decent chance I'm not actually hungry, I'm emotional hungry. So assess for that. What is it that I'm really wanting? Am I just like craving a bag of chips, or could I eat a banana or an apple or, whatever, insert healthy food here, and that would still taste good and fill me up? And then number 3, you're going to assess, how am I feeling right now? What's going on in my body right now? Did I have a really bad day at work? Did I get yelled at by my boss? Are my kids acting extra crazy or going through some sort of weird sleep thing? Or any number of other examples, right? What was my day like? Did I have a super stressful day, or was my day pretty relaxed and chill? So once you've answered those questions, you can get a better sense of where you are. And so if you answered and you become aware that, yes, I'm craving chips, and yes, I had a really crappy day at work, then maybe I am trying to emotionally eat. So then what? Then what do? Then we need to find something else that we can do instead, and then come back later to the kitchen if we need a snack. So I would argue, and this is, I think, one of the challenges for people, is they hear the word coping skill and they automatically assume there's like this secret list of coping skills that therapists have like in their back pocket of like, these are the things that are coping skills and things are things that are not. I would argue that anything that makes you feel better or makes you feel joy can be a coping skill. Now, we have positive coping skills and we have negative coping skills. Excuse me. Get a little too excited. We have positive coping skills and we have negative coping skills. And a negative coping skill might be emotional eating or drinking. Those kind of things may serve as negative coping skills, but technically it's still a coping skill. But I would argue that anything that you do that makes you feel better could be considered a coping skill. So if for some reason you hate yourself enough that you like running, I'm sorry, I always make fun of the runners. I'm sorry, I really am just kidding. But if you like to run, running is a coping skill for you, just like weightlifting could be a coping skill. There really is no limit to the type of coping skill that you can use to make you feel better. So I'll name some just to give you some ideas, but things like journaling is a pretty common coping skill. I personally cannot journal. I have tried. I will write in a journal for like a day, and then 3 years later, I'll pick that same journal up again. That's just, I can't journal. I don't journal. I don't like to journal. It doesn't work for me. So not every coping skill is going to work for everyone, but you could journal. Dancing is a coping skill. There's some research to suggest that dancing is actually a really good coping skill. Listening to music, talking to a friend or a partner if you live with a roommate or a spouse. But the key here is that once we've done that assessment, that's not the time to decide what coping skill we're going to use. What we're going to do is we're going to plan ahead, and we're going to pick some coping strategies that we can try in that moment ahead of time. So you've done your assessment, right? You're standing in the kitchen, you're doing that assessment, you get to the end and you're like, oh no, I'm emotionally eating, or I want to emotionally eat. I'm going to go call my sister and talk to her about my day. Or I'm going to go pray. Or I'm going to go and listen to some music for a little bit. And then maybe sorry y'all, my camera was tired of my nonsense and it just shut off. So it ran out of space for me to say things. Anyway, so what you're going to do is once you've done that, you're going to go and do that coping skill. But I want to circle back to the cognitive dissonance piece we talked about here a few weeks ago in the other video, is that it's really important that you continue to practice this skill, because it's probably not going to come naturally or right away. It's going to feel fake and it's going to feel false when you really want a bag of chips and you go do yoga instead. That's not going to really make sense to you or your body on the front end. So keep practicing every day for 30 days. Every time you feel emotionally hungry and you do that assessment and you note that, go and practice one of these coping skills, and it will eventually get easier. It's going to be much harder at first, but it will come with practice. And this also isn't me saying that you should never give in to cravings or never eat a bag of chips. Like, that's not what I'm suggesting at all. In fact, I would argue that eating any food in moderation is actually going to serve you better psychologically than reserving these sort of foods for the stress foods that you eat when you're scared, sad, whatever. So I would actually argue that it's important to maintain eating all of the foods in moderation, just because you want to enjoy it and not because that's what you eat when you stress eat. You want to give yourself a new reassociation with what you do when you feel stressed, and just allow that food in moderation when you want to have it, or just because you worked it into your calorie budget. And that's also one of the other things that can really help with this when you're in the kitchen is for some, this might feel controversial, but for me, this is one of the things that really helped me is by tracking my food and putting my food in a food log with a calorie budget really helped me to see what I was eating. And that was a nice way to talk myself out of emotionally eating. Like, because a lot of times for me, my emotional eating comes at the end of the day or when I'm at that like decision fatigue moment. And so because of that, if I can look at my calorie budget and say like, well, I mean, I'm at calorie budget today, so nothing that I want to like emotionally eat fits in there. Like things that fit in there are some carrots or some apple slices, but like this bowl of ice cream doesn't fit, or this bag of chips doesn't fit. I can more easily talk myself out of it because I got goals, and this goes against my goals. And so that might also serve you in that moment of time if you're tracking your food and you're looking at your food log and your food log says like, hey, you're pretty much at budget today. So like there's really no reason you should need to eat more food, assuming that you're not like super restrictive in your budgeting, then that's a good opportunity for you to reframe, remind yourself, hey, I've got goals, and the new me wants me to eat healthier food and not stress eat so that I can be this more fit, healthier version of myself. So hopefully that makes sense and is a little sort of side tip from me to you that really helped me along the way. And you know, again, I'm not saying that you should never eat these foods. Please I want to make sure that people understand that as well. And if you've loved this, YouTube should be recommending something else they think you'll love. I hope you love it too. And also I recommend, if you haven't already seen the video about how to be successful in weight loss from a psychological perspective. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time. Bye, friends.